In the previous video, we sketched out a draft of the garage location for the main scene of the game.
Okay.
Now in this video, we'll be optimizing and preparing one of the objects for the location, which will be a multi-story building. We're creating a new Blender file, importing the existing object, and since it has a lot of unnecessary polygons and broken textures, we need to fix all of that and prepare the object for our location. The first thing I started doing was removing all unnecessary elements from the object. If I only needed a part of an object, I deleted the excess polygons. I went through the list of objects, switched to local view using the shortcut 8 and worked separately with the selected objects. To keep track of the optimization progress, I enabled the statistics display in the settings, which allowed me to see the current polygon count in the scene, among other things. While going through the objects, I noticed that the building contained many things that are not visible from the camera's position, which significantly slowed down the processing. Therefore, we need to delete all of that and only keep the elements visible from the camera's external perspective. If I encountered an object that was necessary but had too many polygons, like these pipes with excessive detail, I removed every other edge using the hotkeys Alt+Shift and deleted them with Ctrl+X. Afterward, I checked our scene sketch from the camera's perspective and realized that the top part of the roof is not visible in the shot, so I could safely delete it. At the same time, I organized all the objects, merging any that were separated into parts. I also merged all object points using the M hotkey to merge vertices. Then I cleared the normals cache and added a normal modifier to ensure proper shadow rendering. Finally, I went through the list of objects once more to check if I had missed anything that doesn't appear in the camera view, as every extra polygon will significantly affect FPS and how fast the game runs. Since this model is from Sketchfab and already has its textures set up, I just needed to apply the materials to the correct textures. I went into the shading panel in Blender, where all the materials and textures can be adjusted in the node workspace. I went through all the materials of the object and added any missing textures that had been lost, but I only added the albedo, meaning the color textures without normals, metallic maps, and so on. This allowed me to see how the model looked after optimization and what textures it was using overall. Since optimizing textures is also an important part of the preparation process, we need to reduce the number of textures to a minimum. After I applied all the textures to our object, I noticed a few more polygons that could be deleted, so I started doing even deeper optimization. With the help of textures, I could see which elements could be detailed and which ones could be made more simplified, since the texture hides the shape anyway. If there is a chance to save on performance, it's best to remove everything unnecessary, as mobile phones have weak processors, and we need to minimize both polygons and textures. For example, objects that are farther from the camera can be made more simplified, meaning we can optimize them more and leave fewer polygons than the objects closer to the camera, since we don't see that much detail. This way, we save more on polygon count. I also noticed some extra edges on the wall that could be removed, but when I deleted the ones in the middle, the texture broke. In the end, I left those edges to save time. Leaving 10 extra polygons is not a big deal compared to the time we would lose fixing the texture's UV mapping. After I finished all the optimization, I merged everything into one object and removed all unnecessary materials by clicking the down arrow and deleting all the unused materials that weren't assigned to the object. Then I started reviewing the remaining materials. If I noticed that a material had a single color texture, for example, one that from the camera's distance looked like a solid color, I deleted the texture and created a material with the same local color instead. This way, we optimize the textures, since a material without a texture weighs much less than one using a PNG texture. Our goal in the shading process is to reduce the number of textures to a minimum. Ideally, we would use no textures at all, but if there are patterns, we aim to reduce it to 1 or 2 textures, or just a few. Great, we've prepared our object and fully optimized it for our scene. Now, we'll export this object as an FBX file, import it into our location, place it in the right spots, and check from the camera's perspective which polygons are not visible. We'll delete those as well for better optimization within the location, since there's no point in keeping polygons that don't show up on camera and slow down the process. This video wraps up here, and I will perform the same process for the rest of the objects in the location and assemble the optimized scene. In the next video, I'll show you how I integrate everything into Unity. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up.